Rocket Lab is set to launch from the US, Astra preparing for its first launch from Florida, and newly publicly traded and listed Virgin Orbit is prepping for its next launch. A big month of January is expected for many of the space stocks, including the launchers. I'm Nick Stewart with a look at your space stock report for the week of January 9, 2022. Again, full disclosure, I am not a financial advisor. I'm here just to give you the news, and in fact, I got rid of all of my listings in my portfolio in this sector, at least for now. We'll plan on reinvesting that here in the short term. And Virgin Orbit rang the opening bell last week on the NASDAQ following its successful SPAC merger. Virgin Orbit is now listed as VORB. For the festivities, they had a mock-up of the Launcher 1 in Times Square. How neat is that? This will be the same type of rocket to carry 3 customer payloads into orbit later this month. The mission above the clouds will carry payloads for the US Department of Defense, Sat Revolution, and also publicly traded Spire Global. You may recall Spire's payload was a very late addition, which kind of shows the versatility and ability of Virgin Orbit's Launcher 1. I like to think there might have been some also bonus of the fact that it is a Department of Defense payload on this, so they really got to see how quickly Virgin Orbit could add a new customer payload just in case, the government or military has to launch something up into orbit really fast. Virgin Orbit looks pretty impressive. Virgin Orbit told CNBC they're hoping for 7 total launches in 2022. Meanwhile, Rocket Lab is getting closer and closer to its first US launch from the Wallace facility in Virginia. NASA reports that final flight readiness is almost set. The NASA Autonomous Flight Termination Unit, or NAFTU, is essentially software that makes the range, which provides clearance for launch, and the launch provider to be able to communicate well together and allow those safe launches. Essentially, it allows any potentially errant rocket threatening people or threatening buildings and things like that, if it's heading in an unsafe direction, it can be terminated safely and remotely by the range. And the hope is that the final version of this software will be ready to be used for Rocket Lab, potentially for launch in the second quarter of 2022. Sticking with launch providers, we got our first glimpse of Astra's next launch vehicle on a launch pad in Florida. This will be a launch for NASA. The launch, named LV0008, will take place at Launch Complex 46 at the Cape Canaveral Air Force and Space Force Station. A photo posted on Twitter, which I linked below, definitely encourage you to help support the actual photographers that are out doing this kind of thing. Jared Locke shows the launcher on the pad with an NASA meatball painted on the fairing. That comically small rocket compared to the launch complex that's set for launch in January of this year. The initial date, no earlier than, is January 18th, but until we get a formal announcement by Astra, that's very TBD. And in your space stock briefs, we take a look at other smaller headlines you're watching this week. Lockheed Martin and General Motors released a teaser of their lunar rover. The unlikely duo first announced this joint venture back in May of 2021, part of the Artemis missions. No new information was really provided, but you have to admit the visuals are pretty awesome. And to the bane of investors of Redwire Space, no new update on their earnings report for Q3. In fact, we're now about 2 months past the expected date, getting close to when we would start prepping for the next earnings report. No information has been released by Redwire since December 2nd, more than a month ago. Big yikes. Finally, Satellogic has announced a new partnership with Descartes Labs. The Earth imaging company will provide high-resolution data for this program. Their current 17 satellite fleet in orbit will soon be upgraded to more than 100 by the end of 2023 if all things go right. That is definitely a provider and a launch provider to watch going forward, although there are so many publicly named and publicly listed Earth imaging satellites like Planet as well as Black Sky. Which one is the best one? It's really kind of hard to decide at this point. And that's a look at your space stock report for the week of January 9th. Am I missing any stories, any companies I should be watching? Please let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your insight. I also would love any constructive criticism to the series, something I do want to keep going all the way through 2022 and potentially beyond. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe for more, and we will see you again in the next video.